7 are present, 1 is absent, 5 are in person, 2 are online. Next item on our list is pledge allegiance and silent prayer. Okay. Next item of business is the reading of the minutes from the previous meeting held on May 19th and June 11th.
Take a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
A motion by Patron, second by Mcmillan. Questions, comments? Seeing none, please cast your ballot.
Aye.
Carries. Next item on the agenda is amendment funding Mcmillan Memorial Library capital improvements for the purpose of legacy foundation grant. That is attached to your packet.
I move to accept.
We have a motion by Mr. Kellogg, second by Mr. Veneman. Is there any discussion, questions on the letter?
I just thought that if some just briefly explain. Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Fall of last year, did the 2020 budget process. The library had put into their 2020 budget request $109,000. The two capital improvements, that being flooring and the Skylight repair for the adult room renovation. During the discussions in those budget meeting was, kind of determined that the funds wouldn't be used for 2021. Apparently, there was some miscommunication there where the library thought that it was put in the 2020 budget, where the home mayor, Louis and I were saying that the funds weren't used for 2021, that was placed for the 2021 budget. However, the library has replaced match grants, of which the city's contribution would be eligible for a match from that grant. However, we're just bailing them out. We're just bailing them out. At the end of this, after we're put in to bail out the match, bailing it out.
Hold it down. Hold on, Tom. Let's do the sources finish first.
So, based on those budget meetings, and obviously, there is no commitment to reappropriating the budget, but that it was placed in the 2021 budget. Although there's a legacy match expiring at June 30th of this year, that's what we're having.
Hold on. Anything further to discuss? I have nothing further. Okay, thank you. Mr. Rio?
No one involved at all.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Kellogg?
Basically, it's not really down anything. This was a plan. We planned this last year and worked with the with this fund, this matching fund. This is include the city, Washington City, will be losing $100,000. They in their plan was a part of the discussion with students. So I don't disagree, perfectly disagree. It's not building. And any program, any building we have in the city that meets total needs for the population, the youngsters, senior citizens, the music programs, the makerspace. They're going to create conference rooms for Jordan City. I mean, it's like 12 months of the year. Building new. Wait, listen, I'm speaking. Tim.
Mr. Elm, hold on a second.
Tom,
Yeah, beer.
Tom, I know you're on
Beer. And then double up the plate.
Tom. Tom, I know you're on the phone, but would you please respect my comments and then you can, I'm not done speaking.
Hold on, Mr. Elm.
I'm not done speaking. When I'm done speaking, I'll say I'm done speaking. Okay, so, I won't reiterate totally, but it was discussed last fall. It was part of the plan, and Legacy was excited and encouraged to help match it. It's $100,000 from them, and I won't go through about how this. I think it's a jewel of the city for meeting the needs of people needing web Wi-Fi programs, all of that. That it's not bailing out. It's actually embracing that program that they have there and acknowledging that Legacy realizes it's an important program. So that's where I'm coming from, and I'm done talking.
Okay, Mr. Kubishak is next, and then you, Mr. Elm.
I guess I want to echo Mr. Kellogg's sentiment with the library. The library offers functions for a certain portion of the community that needs functions. So the question, though, that I have, I guess, that maybe the source of I guess, fear, question, whatever, is this specifically coming out of the library portion of the budget one? Because I don't remember during budget time last year, although I know that this project was talked about. But the question is it coming out of the city's contingency fund? And I guess this would be for Mr. DeSource, but is it coming out of the city's contingency fund or a specific city budgeted capital expense item? Or is this coming out of the capital expense item of the actual library's budget, and we just have to do this as a formality because the library is a subunit of the city of Wisconsin.
To answer that question, actually this is a commitment by the council to the city to fund these projects, and basically they will be presented in the 2021 budget for funding, whether that be a contingency fund, tax levy, or if we add it on to, if we have our annual borrowing for street projects, we put it on there. But at this point, basically what we're doing is we're approving this letter as a commitment so that we can get the matching funds from the Legacy Foundation for this project, and this will be placed into the 2021 budget. Now, I understand that this is a little kind of goes against our process because, I've always heard throughout the years we don't want to commit future councils and budget for this, but obviously if this would have been a 2020 project based on the discussions that we had, it would have been funded in the 2020 budget, but because of the timing of when the funds were needed, it was delayed for 2021, and obviously there was a miscommunication with the library as to which budget it was going to be in. So, at this point, I can't tell you the specific funding source. My guess will be this amount of reserve attached to a borrowing, like we did the bathroom renovation, or tax levy, but I would guess the reserves were added on to the bond issue, but At this point, obviously, with 2021 budgets being in question, I can't dictate exactly which source of funding it'll come from. But they basically, by approving this, is that you're basically saying that we're committed to these projects be funded in the 2021 budget in order to get the match from Legacy.
Thank you, Sarcia. Mr. Rayon, your turn.
Yeah, and I totally respect that, and I do. But on which bank do we rob? Which bank do we rob the money? Mayor, you run on lower tax. Mr. Kubisha, you were talking about the same token of how we reduce our spending or cut our spending or whatever it is. Well, I'm going to be the only one that's going to have to step up to play. Say, in this case, it is the Rapids Library. Grand Rapids is Rapids. They won't play the game. You got to put the money up to play. And they don't. They have to put it up. That's their requirement. Everybody's going to sit out and play. It's not get standard right. You got to get up and speak up. People aren't playing the same thing at all. They're getting a free ride. Like the free ride was the hangers up the kid right here. So with that, I'll just let the story run because I said what I was going to. Oh, I was going to go in.
Okay, thank you.
I could please him.
All right. That's great. Not watching the queue of the speaker today.
Thank you, Your Honor. Scott, I don't disagree with the importance of the library. And the service that it does not only for Wisconsin Rapids, but for the surrounding area. My concern with funding for anything right now is with the news that happened this past week with losing Verso. I know there's people potentially looking at buying the mill, but the question I'm going to come to is right now a good time to invest money into something when our future's uncertain. Mill does go idle, what's the communication coming out of Verso, what we've been told, that's going to be that is the major taxpayer for the city that they're losing. And I just don't want to see us caught up in obligations that we potentially can't fulfill. Again, it's an important project. It's worthwhile. It's a good endeavor, but I won't feel comfortable going forward with something like that at this time until we have a better picture of what the future is going to be.
Well, it's always a challenge to find what the future is going to be. We expect people to go.
understand where you're coming from. Who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. Who knows? We could have a buyer for the mill next week. I mean, we don't know. But do you give up $100,000 where it's a bird in the hand, and we have to know, they have to know by next Thursday, I think it is, otherwise they'll give the money away to someplace else. And my point is, and I understand where everybody's coming from. I really do. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to be try to be giving perspective. And we could have the COVID virus go away in a couple months. Who knows? But I doubt it. But it just seems like I think you have to deal with the present, the circumstances that you have at the present, the impact on the number of people that take advantage and benefit from that program, and from the person who they even, for example, when the library was closed, they set up their Wi-Fi so people who didn't have Wi-Fi could come in their parking lot and use their Wi-Fi. They have programs, people go there every day. It's kind of like a home away from home. And those are the people that other people may have a computer at home and so forth, but they go and use those computers. You have you have youth that go in there and use the makerspace. Now, if you know the makerspace, it's in kind of, I want to say the basement, a small area. And they want to increase the makerspace to be on the second floor to attract youth and get them in positive things in the community. Now, that's where I'm coming from. But if it's the dollar, who knows what it's going to be in the future? And if you have matching, it just seems logical to me to vote for this. And I do appreciate everybody's perspective. I'm not trying to say, but that's the logic where I'm trying to come through. And I would just hope that we could vote yes on this. Otherwise, we'd just give up $100,000 for city property. That's all. That's basically what I want to say. I'm done speaking.
Thank you. Mr. Catno?
Yeah, I think it's more important than ever that we invest in resources like the library, especially with Verso going out of business. People are going to be using that to technology, computer, internet side of it. Not everybody has that at home. They're going to be using it to be looking for jobs. They're going to be using that area to re-educate themselves as they go back to school at mid-state. So this investment now is more important than ever that we continue to put into this resource. So in my opinion, I'm fully in favor of this, and even more, especially with so many people in this town going out of jobs, they're going to need this resource. So I'm 100% in favor of this. I think it couldn't be a better time to put money into something like our local library.
Thank you. Mr. Benjamin?
Oops, sorry, excuse me. Mr. Gatnow, you kind of stole my thunder. I was going to echo the same sentiments about the resources that the library does provide for looking for opportunities now that seems like a lot of people are going to need them in the near future. Hopefully that might not be the case. I did have one question though, to when Mr. Kellogg mentioned that they need to know by next Thursday, or the money's going to go to another source. Do we know that that money's leaving the community, or is that money is just a commitment to this? And then I guess that's my final question on that.
I can't speak to the legacy and that type of. They have to program. I'm not into. I don't know the programming money, and they have to program the money by the end of this month. So they needed an answer by, I think it was this Thursday, so that we turned it down, then they'll look elsewhere to allocate those funds. But as a trust or what have you, that the legacy is, they have to plan ahead. And so they're saying, you need to know now, so at the end of the month, we'll give it to you. Or if you tell us now, then we have a couple weeks, we can go to the next person who might have asked and allocate it to them. So that's basically my simple concept of how it works.
Mr. Bemke? Thank you. I have a question. Has this project started yet? Has this project started yet? If it hasn't started yet, when is it going to start? And I guess I don't understand how this, I mean, if it's a 2020 project and it was budgeted in 21, how does that all happen?
Mr. DeSarcy? Or Mr. Keller?
I'll go with Tim.
Okay. Tim?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know the timing of the project. Like I said earlier, is that, you know, at the budget discussions, it was, you know, the kind of the fundraising would happen during the 2020, and then it'd be a 2020 project. That's why we did not put it in the 2020 budget. Obviously, we weren't aware of the legacy matching grant that was to expire as of June 30th this year. But I also, you know, I hope that answers your question. I don't know, maybe Alderperson Kellogg has a little bit more knowledge on the timing of the project, but I just want to say, it's like, in no means do I want this to reflect negatively one iota on the Legacy Foundation. I applaud and I appreciate their investment in the community, the library project, the aquatics, and we appreciate it. So I just don't want this, you know, that we appreciate Legacy and their matching grants and the other grants that they have given the city.
And I'll totally second that, Tim.
Basically, it's going to be planned for 2021. They have the plans. They have to put bids out. They have to determine, you know, details of whatever's involved with remodeling the library, like that, the upper library. The letter is for the carpeting and the skylight. The skylight's leaking. It will have to be repaired or replaced at some point in time. And the carpeting is, if you look at the carpeting, it's really bad. So what this letter is committing to, I guess in my opinion, not a frill, it's a basic. You need the new carpeting, you need the skylight. And to answer your question, I guess more specifically, the money has to be committed now so that they can start working with they haven't hired, they have plans, but they haven't hired an architect to finalize it. They haven't hired, they're not going to start getting contractors and putting bids out and so forth until probably the far latter portion of 2020. And so that's why the money would be in 2021 when they start to get the construction underway. And that's the commitment that you have to just look out 6 months, in a sense, to get that construction going. So I hope I answered your question.
I don't
Mr.
disagree.
Mayor,
It sounds like a good project to me too.
If
I
somebody
don't, but
wants-
I'm just a little concerned where the oversight is on this and how these things happen. Now, if I understand your explanation, it was because of this grant. This is the reason now. So, but who provides the oversight for this project for the library? Who manages this project for the library? Does the library manage the project?
I would say yes. The library board manages the project, but they would get input from hopefully other people but they would go with the architect. They would submit it if that's a question, submit it. They have plans, you know, like they're going to have conference rooms. They're moving the stack. They're going to replace the carpeting. So they're going to move the stacks in from the windows. So they have study carrels around the outside. There's going to be like I said, up in the top floor, a maker space with a conference area so people can, and at the end, there's going to be a large conference room for a company that wants to come in and give instruction, but 5 small conference areas. Sometimes some business people want to meet with someone. They can meet there. They're going behind the circulation desk. They're going to enlarge the bank of computers because they're really people want them and need them to use them. Hopefully, I'm answering your questions, but we have a planner. We went through a process. They tried to figure out how much it would cost, and we have the superintendent of schools on our board, and he has and had been working with additions to buildings. And he said, "Wow, that square footage of what you think is going to cost is very reasonable," and he said that's pretty nice. And so I mean, we have him on the board. And I'm on the board doesn't mean I know exactly what I'm talking about with regard to building and so forth, but I'd be happy to share maybe with the finance committee throughout the year the steps, or Andy can come over and share stage by stage of what's happening. And also on the website you can bring it up and they show you a I don't know what you call it, but they take where you can show it throughout the second floor what it would look like. So it gives you a sense of the conference rooms and so forth that's on their website. And that's basically about it that I can share. Okay, thanks.
Michelle, did you have something? Okay. Mr. Penniman.
Well, I guess I'm a little more confused now, actually. So the 109,000 for capital improvements for the Mcmillan Memorial Library, specifically to be used for adult room flooring and skylight repair. So I guess I'm trying to figure out where the building and everything, that's the matching grant funds. So the 109,000 that they're matching is for adult room flooring and skylight repair.
Yeah, they designated it for, but they'll give us another $109,000 for other items that they may want. So, but that was a concrete thing so that the Common Council can see what specifically where the $109,000 will go, and the legacy will match that. So, also they're asking again contributions. They're still campaigning. I think once this construction starts to go underway, more and more people will be donating to it. I guess I don't know what more I can answer and hopefully not mislead or confuse people.
Well, I guess then that does point to Mr. Bemke's question about oversight. We have 109,000 for capital for adult room flooring and skylight repair, but we aren't really talking about what the other 109,000 or matching amount would go to, except estimates. So I guess we're not.
So the legacy gave them $1 million match. So they're trying to build up to equal $1 million to get the full million.
Okay.
So once with the 109,000 that's committed by the city, that'll take up 109,000 off the million on the match.
I see.
If I explain that correctly.
Thank you. That makes sense now. That's where I was lost.
And we have an Andy on the
Mayor,
phone.
I could just ask a question, though, Mr.
Yep.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Is Tom Realm here is that the city's putting the money in. If we approve it, the 109 or whatever thousand, the city's paying that. The surrounding communities ain't putting a nickel or a dime in, right?
Into the 109,000.
Are they putting a nickel and a penny a dime?
Well, we're asking Wood County as well.
And Tim, so it's probably left up to you.
Yeah, to answer your question, as far as the capital outlay in that building, it would be funded like all the other capital outlays, like the bathroom renovation, the parking lot, the emergency generator, that it would be a city appropriation in the 2021 budget. To answer the question how the other townships fund the Mcmillan Library is, if if you recall, every year, right around budget time, we pass a resolution to exempt city taxpayers from the library appropriation at Wood County. So all the other townships contribute toward, because we get funding from Wood County, which is, I wish I had the number offhand. It's like north of $400,000. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that money that goes to offset the operating appropriation comes from the surrounding communities through the Wood County tax, of which city taxpayers are exempted.
And I understand that. My problem with this tonight is what we're talking about. Is this an extra $100,000 going on to Wisconsin Rapids, where the other surrounding communities aren't participating, unless I missed something here. Surrounding communities aren't putting in a nickel or a penny. City's putting in $109,000 on their own. And the other surrounding communities, like everything else, unless they're forced to, don't pay to belong. So that's what it is. Basically, it's a free ride again. And City of Rapids pays for the whole thing. Yeah, and I agree. Legacy's done a lot of stuff. So I'll back up to that, because I totally agree. Legacy has done a heck of a lot for the community. Totally agree with that. But in this case, somebody else should also have to step up to the plate, and that's the surrounding community.
Right, Alderperson Real, if I may interject, you're correct that when it comes to capital items, that has always fallen on the city, whereas, you know, the operating appropriation is supported through, obviously, the city's tax levy and the Wood County Library aid, which is funded through the surrounding communities. And just to give I looked up the number, Wood County Library aid for the 2020 budget was $580,000, just so I correct myself on that. I said north of $400,000, so I was in the right direction. But yes, you're right. That the surrounding communities, through their county tax, contribute to the operating, but historically, the capital items to fund the library improvements for the building have come from the city.
And I understand that, and it's been around too long. But maybe it's time that we change how some of these things are funded, and what extra else people are that is put on their tax rolls. Different communities, they help participate around through the rest of the year, and that's what it should be to me. So it's probably time that we readjust how we actually operate. And that would take us all to sit down at a table and come up with a resolution. This is what we're going to do as Rapids, and not bail out. We'll operate as Rapids, but when we have to take it from different accounts, we're breaking the account. And as Mr. Cole said earlier, the closing of Verso and all what's going to happen. We got to get a hold of ourselves to where we're at, and how we're going to realign our spending of money. And actually, later up in this conversation tonight, there's going to be discussion on opening the pool. So if you think I'm talking too long now, you wait till then. Thank you.
Mr. Pellick?
So I really don't want to get the conversation back and forth, but the other scenario is no one's taking advantage of in my opinion, no one's taking advantage of anyone. So if this is turned down, we lose the 109,000, and then in 3 years from now, the leaky ceiling will have to be replaced, the carpeting will have to replace, and then we'll come back to the Common Council and we'll say we don't have enough money to replace the leaky ceiling or the carpeting, and we could say, well, let's look back. Remember when we said that we could have had matching funds for $109,000 and have a a fine library where a large number of people take advantage of. I don't want to say much more than that, but that's where I'm coming from. Thanks.
I understand that, Scott. I appreciate your viewpoints all the time.
All right, gentlemen, I do not see anyone else who wishes to speak. And seeing none, why don't we vote?
My vote's no.
Okay.
Thank you. And Mr. Katna?
Aye.
Thank you. Our vote is 5 ayes and 2 nays. Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Next item on our agenda is consider a resolution extending the emergency declaration proclamation regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. And your wishes?
I'd like to be in the speaking order whenever that's.
Go ahead, I'll wait.
Sounds good. We have Mr.
So okay.
We have Mr. Kubishak got in first.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the continuation until the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
To have a motion by Mr. Kubishak, seconded by Mr. Veneman. Mr. Katna, you're up.
Thank you. So I'll just reiterate what I said last month at the common council meeting. I do feel this should be a county level decision, not a city. I am concerned about the aquatic center and not opening that. I do feel as a city, if we're governing different than our neighboring municipalities, it's not going to change the spread of COVID. It's not going to affect anything. And our city taxpayers paid for these parks, specifically the aquatic center, the maintenance of the bathrooms and other parks. Private businesses are wide open. I don't see any reason why we need to extend this. And if we did need to, if COVID gets that bad in our county or city again, I feel like we could come back to common council with this. Otherwise, people are just going to drive up to Grand Rapids, they're going to drive down to Port Edwards and Nakusa and use their park. So I stand the same I did previously on this issue. I'm not going to go over it all again, but that's where I stand. I really hope that we can continue to move forward with opening the aquatic center. I've had a lot of conversations around town with residents. I haven't heard anybody that is not in favor of doing it, and I do like to leave open the option of personal choice. That if people want to stay home, they can, but I don't want us as a government to tell them that they can't when we are not doing it at a county level, we're not doing it at a state level, we're not doing it at a federal level.
That's the Republican talking right there.
Actually, no, I'm independent, but
Right there. Let me.
Hold on, Mr. Rion. Let him finish.
no, I mean, that I said it last month. I stand by the same opinion.
I have something to say. So.
Yeah, well, you can go next. I'm done. But that's where I stand. I said it last month. I stand by that same opinion again.
Okay.
Mr. Rion, you're up.
And I will not put
What's
my
that?
life
Oh.
for my kids' life. Am I recognized?
Oh.
I will not put my
Yes.
life, my kids' life, my family's life in the hands of guests. When the president said 3 months ago, because he still wanted, and he still has this day admit to it, but it was a hoax. It's time we get real, people. We haven't seen it here because we were locked down until the stupid Supreme Court overturned it. We were locked down. And that's how we have to operate to beat this thing. This is crazy. This is ridiculous. There's a right and a wrong. And to me, the most I'd grant out to the middle of July. And we have another special meeting. Open the aquatic center. And I'll get my notes here. Oh, and the rafters. Another big one. I would give it to you. I'll say the 22nd of July, and we'll meet before that. And we'll get references by doctors, not who we just want to make up our own minds or who wants to watch baseball. Because I'm the biggest baseball fan in this town. Have been for half a century. At some point in time, people, so you have to get real. Not make believe. It's time we have to step to the plate. And when that high inside fastball comes, you just duck a little bit. Or you take one in the chin. So there's a way to play the game. People in Rapids, get real. We are better than how we're talking. We're better. We can be better. And let's be better. If we have to show the way to the world how to control this virus, let's be real. Let's be real. Maybe we all got to back up for a year. Back off from doing anything and be real. No matter what you want. We got $12.5 million in the Aquatic Center. And I'm standing here now as part of it. Went through the whole design process. And a lot of you members up there on the council weren't even here. A couple of you even opposed the whole project. But it happened. And through me and parts of my family and other people, we fought for this thing for 25 years to happen. It's a grand facility. Boy, whoever can go get in there, go look at it. But that's an endangerment to humanity with what's floating around. Because none of us are smart enough to understand the disease. Because the doctors who know are still trying to figure it out themselves. So all of us who want to make a decision, we're absolute idiots. We're absolute idiots if we'd open that pool. Okay, now, I'll give you another 4 weeks on it and have a special council meeting. I'll do that to reevaluate. It's up and operating. It's open. Could be open. Lifeguards have been trained or are finishing get training. And if we gotta pay and nobody goes in to employ them people through July, then we pay it. And if we still don't open, we pay them. Somewhere we gotta bite. Somebody in this country has to bite the bullet and stand up. Somebody has to really stand up and bite the bullet. And I'm willing to do that, and I might be the only one out of 18,000 people in RAP. But yes, they have the guts enough to do it. And my thing is, we don't open. I'll meet in a month. I'll do that. Not tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rayom. Mr. Veneman?
First of all, I do have to take exception to the comments, the stupid Supreme quote unquote, from Mr. Rayom. It was a Supreme Court decision. Whether we agree with it or not is really irrelevant. But I don't think it's in the city's best interest to use terminology like stupid Supreme Court or quoting the president and things of that nature, because it's pretty much irrelevant. We're a city that runs autonomously.
Well, it's not.
Regarding the
I'll shut up. No.
I agree with Mr. Catno. I am fully in favor of opening the pool when on July 29th as presented. I appreciate the letter from Mr. excuse me, from Mr. Terry. And also, just on a further note, yes, we do not know the science, but we do know that there's about 3,300 tests so far, 3,300 negative tests in Wood County, 24 positive tests in Wood County to this date.
Keep in mind,
There are,
Paul-
excuse me, I'm still talking, Mr. Rayom. There are 73,000 residents in Wood County and 24 positive cases at this point. So while we do not know the science, we are fairly isolated from this at this point. I believe that the nation has their own different areas, and we should take care of our area, and for that, I'm fully in favor of opening the pool. And I do appreciate the precautions taken, especially the 400 capacity that's been recommended. So that's my thoughts on the issue. Thank you.
Mr. Kellogg.
I also appreciate the modifications that you made with regard to the opening. And I agree with Alderman Cattanall that, you know, unless you've been under a rock, you've been watching this for months, and you know how to deal with your own personal needs. I carry a mask, I use lotions on my hands, that's my responsibility. And it gets to a point where we're setting up some expectations at the pool, and people go there, they need to know what they have to do personally. I don't think it's our responsibility to control or monitor how people behave. I think we have to have expectations, but some people don't wear masks in the stores, but I do. That's the way it is. I don't care if they don't wear masks. I want to take care of myself. And people that participate at that pool need to take on their own responsibility in how to be at the pool and be safe at the pool. And I don't think I'm going to tell them what to do. So I think it should be open. And that's where I'm coming
Mr. Kubish.
Yeah, thank you. I guess for a point of clarification, we're not necessarily voting on opening any parks, right? I think the motion is, or the item on the floor is giving the mayor the authority to make the decisions during this process. So that's what we would be looking at is, do we want to take back over control in this period of uncertainty? And I think that's the one thing, if we put 10 people in a room, we're going to get 10 different answers about the certainty moving forward. So that's why we had originally created this emergency declaration to not so much decide whether parks are open or not, but to consolidate that with one office, being the mayor's office, if we can't, and can we get to, if there's a crazy emergency that happens that we can't convene and create a meeting. So I guess that's what we're voting on, right? Am I wrong?
So yeah, that's correct. That is the motion. I guess Attorney Schill, we were talking that maybe if there's a second motion in there on dealing with specifically the pool, and she might have some thoughts on that.
Right. I mean, I guess the emergency declaration is one thing. Then what flows from that is your ability as a council to take actions that in ways that you might not otherwise, might be prohibited to in a normal situation, such as change an ordinance or a rule or something like that. And then also the same is true for the mayor, that he can make those decisions in between the council meetings, emergency decisions that need to be made. So it is kind of both of you, and as part of this resolution, you could add emergency orders in here regarding the pool, or you could just defer to the mayor. It's written right now as from basically the only thing that's in here is still the meetings being suggested to be remotely to allow the public to participate, and there really aren't any other actions in here, but you could do that today in terms of an emergency declaration, or I'm sorry, an emergency action regarding the pool. The Park and Rec Commission has already said that they wanted it open on June 29th. City staff consensus was to open it on June 29th. So if you are inclined to do something different than that, then you certainly could as part of your emergency declaration, or renewing the emergency declaration, or you could simply, I guess the second option would be to discuss it and make your thoughts known to the mayor, and then have him be the decision maker if he wants to do something different than Park and Rec and city staff. So I
Thank
think,
you for, oh, I'm sorry, Sue. For clarification on the motion at hand, we do not have a subsequent motion within this. We don't have a secondary motion, correct? It's just specifically for the emergency declaration. Now, I'm not opposed to anything, but we don't have anything on that, on the agenda, or I'm sorry, on the motion, so then can we even be discussing it without having a secondary motion and a second on the floor?
well, right, because the declaration in and of itself is allowing, in under chapter 323, is it? 320, yeah, 323, allows the council to take actions, emergent actions with or without notice, changing ordinances without prior notice, rules. So I would say that you could, if you wanted to do that today in terms of the action on the pool, or make your intention or your thoughts known to the mayor.
So I missed part of that in what you were just saying. I appreciate what you're saying, but I missed part of it, just so it's clarified in my mind. But can the city, no matter what the Supreme Court did, the city just, we ain't going to open anything?
Absolutely. It's the city is in control of its property and what happens on its property, and additionally,
I agree with all the person Kubishak's thing is really, I think, get back to what the motion on the floor is, because when he tried to bring up before of what it really was, at the same time was going through my mind as somewhat shift the gears and what the motion really was. So it's, if we're going to open things up,
the motion was to approve it as it's written, as it was attached, which is to extend the emergency.
if we would leave that the mayor can do whatever. My thing is, I don't have a problem necessarily with it. I'd like to more define it. But if we're opening things up, it shouldn't be up to nobody's opinion. It should be open. You don't have a right, nobody has a right to say no. It should be open. We shouldn't even be arguing about it. It should have opened last night. Because we have right to, but I guess we don't have a right.
Right, you do. The city has the right to.
Yep. No, the mayor doesn't need special. If we're open, let's be honest. If we're open, we're open. Take away his special declaration. There shouldn't even be it. We're open, we're open. That's where I come from. And that's why I'm really hesitant. Because I really question what this disease is. We ain't seen nothing yet. New York City ain't even seen nothing yet. What's going to happen? Get real again, people. Get real. But if we're open, open it up. The mayor doesn't need a special declaration. We're open. I didn't like when we did this, start with the special declaration. It's a stupid way to operate. The council should have been meeting on what we did. But we didn't. If we're open, people. Get real. If we're open, we're open. I vote against it. But if we're open, you all vote for it. Go for it. Don't just let the mayor say what he can do. All you council members, vote what you want to do. To me, it's cool. I'll give you to the middle of July, like I said. That includes the rafters, too. So whatever they're trying to dream up between you and part of the council, I've not been involved with at all. What's been dreamt up. I'll come back and meet on the same issue in a month from now. Or 5 weeks from now. And then we'll talk about what's going on. Let me tell you, I am totally upset on how this country has handled this whole operation. That's why we have more deaths than the rest of the world combined. And that's even underestimated because we ain't even counted the ones who died the first part of the year because we didn't know what goes around. So get real, people. Get real. Shut the place down. Get real. And that's probably just about the last you're going to hear of me tonight. So, other than when I have to read Public Works, because otherwise I've said my piece and I know where my votes are and you know where they are. And other than reading Public Works, you won't hear no more from me.
Thank you, Mr. Elm. Mr. Coth.
I just see Mr. Terry was signaling to speak, so I wanted to give him time.
Thank you. I'll be pretty brief. From a staff viewpoint, operational viewpoint, I really do think that the actions that the council has taken, this is obviously has the potential to be a very dynamic situation, and there may be need for decisions to be made, on a with very short notice. So from an operational standpoint, I certainly think that this is a good opportunity. There's been mention of the memorandum that I've sent, and for the public that hasn't had an opportunity to read it, at the conclusion of the meeting, I will get that posted on our aquatics page. But I just want to assure the council and the viewing public that as staff, we take this situation very seriously. When we met and discussed this, we discussed it for several hours. We did not have a unanimous consent amongst all the staff as far as what's the right thing to do. But I am confident that for the aquatics facility, as was mentioned, that we can open it safely under the current situation, and we can plan on doing that. But that situation could change. And if it does change, we need to be able to hopefully count on staff and the mayor to stay in tune with the county health department, stay in tune with the situation, and make decisions then that might be completely different than what we're recommending right now. Based on the information that we have right now, and as staff, I certainly appreciate the position that we've had for the last several months so that we could take action immediately if we needed to. Thank you.
Mr. Terry, I have some questions I'd like to ask, if that's okay. Just for clarification for the viewers at home too. How the Parks and Rec Commission meeting that was held earlier this month, it was come out of that meeting that the pool may tentatively open on June 29th, depending on how the situation develops. Is that correct?
That's correct. The action by the commission was we would tentatively open on the 29th if it was safe to do so. And so as staff, we have reviewed it, and I believe that it is safe to do so with the precautions that I've recommended.
Okay, and because
Your director, Joe, could you just repeat what you said, ended up with? What your recommendation?
Sure.
This is Tom Riom. I
Yep.
just wanted
Yep,
you
no,
to repeat so I understood what you just said on here. So.
I was just going to ask you about that too, if you could briefly describe
sure.
the letter and the geo restrictions.
So the first limitation was a geographical limitation. The effort there is to prevent visitors from a long ways away, or encouraging visitors from a long ways away during this pandemic situation from coming here. Normally we wouldn't want to do that, but the limitations that I've suggested is that we would allow the following communities and members of those communities to use the pool as long as COVID-19 is considered a pandemic. And that would be the City of Wisconsin Rapids, City of Nakusa, Village of Buren, Village of Port Edwards, Village of Rudolph, Town of Grand Rapids, Town of Port Edwards, Town of Saratoga, Town of Seneca, Town of Rudolph, Town of Siegel, and the Ho-Chunk Nation. This list was selected based on the municipalities that have the opportunity to partner with the city in cost sharing. And they're immediately surrounding the community. The other objective of that geographical limitation is that part of the recommendations are for people not to travel long distances. So not only does this potentially keep folks from traveling a long way for a really great aquatics feature, but it also provides an opportunity locally for our residents to have something to do here, and hopefully they avoid maybe traveling a long distance away. So that's the basis of the geographical limitations. The second limitation is patron loading limitations. The pool bather load capacity for this facility is 822 patrons. What I've recommended is that total emissions or total admissions will be reduced to a maximum of 400 patrons at any one given time. So we'll facilitate that by literally having the admissions staff count people in and count people out so that we don't exceed that 400 person limit. Some practices also, personnel and customers, some should type things, should avoid entering the facility if they have any symptoms such as fever, coughing, and flu-like symptoms. Anyone demonstrating COVID-19 symptoms will be identified and asked to leave the premise. Patrons are encouraged to practice social distancing and maintain a minimum distance of 6 feet from non-family members. The city will be cleaning restroom and shower facilities daily and attempting to disinfect deck furniture, common areas, and touch points multiple times per day. Patrons will be encouraged to wash their hands and sanitize any furniture they intend to use. For staff practices, staff will maintain social distancing or wear a mask whenever social distancing is not practical. Staff will wash hands or use hand sanitizer after each time coming in contact with money or physical contact with a patron. Staff will be trained and will use cleaning and disinfection chemicals to clean frequently touched surfaces that are not in contact with chlorinated water every 2 hours. Staff will disinfect the water slide tubes by dipping them in chlorinated water after they're used. And the spread of COVID-19 from concrete surfaces is very low, and so disinfection of concrete surfaces isn't considered beneficial, so we don't have any plans to do any type of regular pool deck type disinfection. With that, as part of my memo, is the evaluation of community spread of COVID-19, and that staff will be in regular contact with the Wood County Health Department to monitor the level of regional COVID-19 infections, and will close the facility if recommended by the Wood County Health Department or if staff believes there's evidence of rapid community spread. So that those are the limitations or restrictions that I've recommended.
Joe, I popped in and I spent some time talking with you last week, Friday too, and we talked about the geo restriction piece, and you'd also mentioned the geo restriction piece by gathering data of people that are using the pool. If there was a COVID-19 case that was traced to the pool, that we would be able to contact anyone that's used the pool with the geo-restriction feature. Do you want to, are you able to speak to that?
Sure. So as people use the facility, our intent is, under normal circumstances, if you purchase a season pass, you know, that information is recorded, because when you scan in, the information is then recorded that at this time, this person scanned into the pool. So if we had a situation, we could contact those people. What we wouldn't normally have is a list of people purchasing day use. And during this process, we would also capture, because we need to find out what their address is, so we would also document and record that information, so that if there were a positive test result and that person was at the pool, we would then be able to provide the health department with extremely accurate data as to any of the other patrons that were at that pool that particular day.
Thank you, Joe. I have no further questions. And just for clarification purposes then, because we've now taken the emergency declaration and we started talking pool, I just want to be clear that out of the Parks and Rec Commission, we have a recommendation to tentatively open the pool on the 29th, and a staff recommendation, which is totally separate than the emergency declaration that we're voting on, that we have a motion and second on. Just because anyone that's probably trying to follow us at home has now heard us talk about the pool at length, and we're talking about emergency declaration. The pool, I believe, if we need to talk about that further, would fall under at the end when we look at the minutes from the other commissions. We can discuss that at length then. But otherwise, the original motion on the floor is to give the mayor the power during the pandemic to continue to operate the city on day-to-day operations as he needs to in the event that the common council is not able to meet. So on that, to allow the mayor to do the day-to-day business of the city, whenever we get to a vote, I'm just going to vote yes to allow the mayor to have the emergency declaration, and we can revisit this next month.
So not seeing anyone else that wishes to speak, I agree with you, Mr. Coates, but at the end of the meeting, we just place them on file so we don't actually take up action. I guess my thought would be, if it's correct, Michelle, would be, if we vote on this, and if we need any subsequent motions, whether it be the pool or another thing that Mr. Coates brought up to me earlier today was meeting attendance, if we need to discuss that at all, to maybe clarify our meetings a little bit further on how, you know, with public interaction, if we want to open them up to public or those type of things. But I think, not to muddy the water any further, if there's no further discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir, Mr. Rail.
Mayor.
Yes.
I wasn't going to say anything again, but I have to one more time. Is
Yep.
that, to reiterate, what duties or responsibilities, and I have it not in front of me right now, but Park and Rec have, who actually runs the parks in the city? And it's a question that's been brought up by a couple of people on the Park and Rec Council for a long time, and we haven't actually brought it before us and how to resolve it. And I have my own thoughts, and where we are, who really has the authority? The Park and Rec Commission, the City Council, or then could the mayor override it, whichever, however it goes. So what really is? Because there's a question in people's minds of what really the duties are of Park and Rec. Who really has the authority to open up Park?
Michelle? Or?
And so that won't have to be part of, that's not part of the discussion tonight, but it's been on a couple of people in the Park and Rec Commission who have had a big concern of actually who controls what happens, because they read the ordinance one way and nobody can prove them wrong. And that it's up to Park and Rec to open and shut. not saying that's what it is, but that's what's open, and we haven't had the meeting to clarify it. So I think a lot of this discussion is somewhat going by the wayside too. It's who actually has the final say.
Well, they do have some authority. However, everything they do is under the general direction and control of the Common Council. So, and this has come up a number of times where they may have made decisions that then the council or maybe the Finance and Property Committee believes that they should, or they want to do a different, they should have some authority over it, or they want to do something different than the Park and Rec Commission did. So I agree that how the ordinance is written, I think that's something to look at in terms of having the council decide exactly what that means under the general direction and control. I think because we are in an emergent situation or under an emergency declaration right now, that the council or the mayor can make decisions or has the authority to kind of overrule or take control over those actions if they are something that are within their purview. So as long as if the emergency is extended, I would think I think the mayor and the Common Council still has control over that. If not, the emergency is not renewed, the emergency declaration, then the argument can be made that Park and Rec should have that final say. There's also the other argument that really some of these are operational issues that perhaps city staff or department heads, should have some authority over. So in these kind of unprecedented times, it's not always clear what, and that's why I have no, I can say for sure that if the council wants to do something different than what Park and Rec is doing something, especially in this, under the emergency declaration, that they can, and also the mayor can.
And that's why part of my thing was I totally respect what you just said. I totally do. I'm not an attorney. I followed what you said. So okay. I totally where I agree with, but I think it is something that the city has to take up, and I think really put on probably the Park and Rec's agendas to start with, to see where we're really at, and then bring it to the council to see where Park and Rec really is at. And to have a discussion, so it doesn't have to be something that happens overnight or in the next 2 months, but at some point in time to clarify who really has control of, and and then the emergency situation to me would be more that the emergency is that you shut something down. The emergency isn't that you open it up, no matter what it is. If it's the aquatic center, Witterfield, the baseball, we either are open or we're not. The emergency would be that, to me, he's got the authority to shut it down, not to open it up. To me, the emergency is to close it. Because otherwise you're open. So there ain't no emergency then. It's open. And that's what the Supreme Court gave you. Well, basically there should be no date, other than we have set a temporary date, which probably could be just wiped off the books, because of what the Supreme Court even did. Pools should be open tomorrow morning. And again, let's not fool ourselves anymore, people. Get real. This is unbelievable. I totally respect this too, like you said, I totally do. And I think we have to clarify what the duties are of Park and Rec, along with other commissions, what their duties really are, or authority they have. And that's why it's a thing on the legislative thing, and we're going to have a meeting. I'll guarantee you that within a couple weeks. And how we redefine duties of the commissions and the council. Because that's been a fear of mine for a long time. who really ran the show.
So I think let's get back to the agenda item here regarding,
So I just want,
Yep.
repeat what the motion was and I'll vote. That's
perfect.
all.
Ms. Catholic? The motion is to approve the resolution.
The motion was to approve the resolution as written, extending the emergency declaration proclamation regarding the COVID-19 pandemic.
So we have a motion and a second. Seeing no other comments, please cast your ballot. Mr.
No,
Rayom, okay, Mr.
No. Mr. Ray Holmes is no.
No, Mr. Catnaugh?
Yeah.
You say no or yay?
Hot no.
A hot no.
Eh, yeah.
There's no hot no button on the thing. So the motion carried 5 ayes and 2 nays to extend the emergency declaration. So do we need to have any further motions or discussions specifically on the pool? Or you good with me making the call then? Okay, and then I guess I just want to maybe clarify your thoughts a moment here regarding meetings and how we're doing them. If we want to, I guess I personally feel that if we're having the meetings in the council chambers here and we can spread out, and how do you feel about members of the public being here or members of the public that have items concerning agenda items? Or, I guess my thoughts are, if we meet as a group and if council people want to choose to participate by Zoom or teleconference, which would be acceptable under the emergency declaration. But I'm kind of curious, and I've been asked, how does the body feel about having members of the public here, or do we limit it to people on the agenda? Mr. Kellogg?
I really think there's situations where the public needs to be there so their voices are heard, and I think this is a great room. I mean, if we have a committee meeting, it's easy to spread out. I know at the library, they opened the library, but they removed all the chairs and put it in the multi-purpose room so people can't linger around. They can select books and so forth. They have different things, but like, for example, our audience, we could probably eliminate 3/4 of those chairs and spread them out, move the podium further. So if there is a case where a constituent from any of our districts need to speak and share their perspective, I just think it's the right thing to do. And now I know there's conflict because this is used for municipal court and other things like that, but I think it's a due process where people have a chance to voice their opinion and share their perspective. That's just where I'm coming from.
Thank you. I think that's a good reminder that we should make sure to check with the clerk before any committee meetings to verify that the room is not being used by court already, so then we can make sure we schedule the meetings in here. Mr. Veneman?
Yeah, I'm in favor, and I agree with Mr. Kellogg about properly socially distancing within this building, but also as long as we do leave the option up to those that want to participate by Zoom or teleconference or whatever the term is these days. And as long as people have ample opportunity to make that choice on their own. That's my thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you for sharing your, Mr. Cole?
I don't object to having people be able to attend governmental meetings. Matter of fact, I've gotten some negative feedback because our council meeting wasn't televised live last month, so there was some comments about us not being live on TV. But if we're going to allow the public to come here, I mean, I would just feel better if we're we don't have to make them required, but if the people want to come here, they are understanding that they're doing it at their own risk, and the encouragement to have your PPE if you should so desire, but it's basically where it doesn't come back and we're held liable for something.
Mr. Kubiszek?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing I want to quick point out, though, is that these meetings are the Common Council's meetings. They're open to the public, they're accessible to the public, but there is no state statute that requires us to have the doors open specifically so that people can be physically in the audience. Now, I've always been a champion about democracy and being as transparent as possible, but it is a fact that as long as we provide access to the meetings, we are in compliance with state statute because we are representatives elected by the people, and cities and villages are representative democracies. Towns are different. That's why you have a town caucus and town budget meeting. But there's nothing that says that people can't contact their representatives or any other council member for example, I mean, if anybody in the city gives me a call, I'll call them back. They don't have to live in District 7. But, I mean, now I didn't know if the meeting was videotaped or not or whatever, but, I mean, it's a case where just because the meetings are accessible to the public doesn't necessarily mean that the public has the physical ability to be at every single one, especially during a pandemic.
Thank you.
Is there a pandemic or not? Get real, people.
Okay. Hearing nothing further, let's move on with the rest of our meeting here. The next item of business is consider an adoption of action of the Planning Commission at its meetings held on June 1st and June 15th. The first report is from June 1st. The Planning Commission met at 4 p.m. on June 1st in the City Council chambers and via video conferencing. Members present are on file in the City Clerk's office. The meeting was called to order at 4 p.m. The first item is approval of the report from the May 4th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Motion by Tao, seconded by Bemke, to approve the May 4th, 2020 Planning Commission minutes. That motion carried 7 ayes and 0 nays. Item 2 is a public hearing and action on Plan -20-0155 Community Development, an amendment to Chapter 11 zoning ordinance of the Municipal Code to define and incorporate a mobile vending use within zoning districts. A public hearing was called to order at 4:07 p.m. No one spoke in favor or against. A motion by Burkhart, seconded by Tao, to approve Plan 20-0155 amendment to the Chapter 11 zoning ordinance to define and incorporate a mobile vending use within zoning districts as presented. And that motion carried 7 ayes, 0 nays. Item 3 was adjournment. Motion by Bemke, seconded by Feith, to adjourn. Motion carried 7-0. Meeting adjourned at 7:23. What are your wishes?
Make a motion to accept the meetings of the Planning Commission.
I have a motion by Koth, seconded by Kellogg. Any discussion? Please cast your ballots.
Alderperson Katna, how do you vote?
Aye. Ray Holmes, no.
Thank you, Mr. Rayom. Alderperson Katna?
He was aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion carried 6 ayes and 1 nay. Second Planning Commission report held on June 15. The Planning Commission met at 4 p.m. on June 15th in the City Council chambers and via video conference. List of attendees are on file in the clerk's office. The meeting was called to order at 4:02 p.m. First item was Bullseye Golf Course Extraterritorial CSM Request for a certified survey map approval for the combination of 3 lots and 1 outlot into 2 outlots within the town of Grand Rapids. The subject property is located at 2800 Ridgewood Trace, parcel ID 0701048. Motion by Bray, second by Tao to approve Bullseye's Golf Course extraterritorial CSM. That motion carried 6 ayes, 0 nays. Item 2 is Plan 20-0434, Ascent Construction, representing the business owner. Request for a site plan review to construct an optical building at 3341 A Street South, parcel ID 3413414. Motion by Tao, seconded by Hanson, to approve Plan 20-0434 site plan to construct an optical building at 3341 A Street South, parcel ID 3413414, with the following conditions. The first is parking in front. The west of the principal building shall not exceed 50% of the total on site. Number 2 is the buffer yard shall extend the full length of the neighboring residential property while meeting applicable code requirements. Number 3 is a lighting plan shall be submitted for review and approval by the Community Development Department. The 4th is the refuse enclosure shall be made of brick, textured concrete masonry units, and or wood. And the last one is minor changes shall be permitted to be reviewed and approved by the Community Development Department. That motion carried 5 ayes, 0 nays, with Bray abstaining. Item number 3 is adjournment. Motion by Tao, second by Blazer to adjourn. Motion carried 6-0. Meeting adjourned at 4:12 p.m. And your wishes?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Koth. And a second by Mr. Kellogg. Any comments or questions? Oh, Mr. Kellogg?
I just have a question. As I speak to residents, there's always this concern about the appearance of 8th Street. Is there going to be a buffer in front of that parking lot, like a hedge or, grass, or what proportion of the area is going to be green? Because that's always been a concern that people have expressed to me about the types of businesses that are currently there, and I think we have to start to begin looking at greenery and how we can insert that. So, Kyle, maybe you have a comment?
There was a updated landscaping plan that was provided at the meeting, which does show an increased amount of landscaping on the entirety of the site. Specifically with regards to 8th Street, there are going to be 3 low deciduous trees, as well as a landscaped area that will take up about, so it'll be about 25 feet or so that'll surround the sign that's proposed for the building. And then the remaining area up front will be grass, and that area is proposed to be about 15 feet wide. So certainly there is landscaping proposed up front, but there's also an abundance of landscaping around the entirety of the site. If you'd like, I can certainly provide you a copy of the updated landscaping plan.
No, I wanted you to express that because that has been a concern of people that I know. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Mr. Catnaugh, Mr. Rayon?
I'm good.
I'll just vote.
Sounds good. Seeing no other comments, ready to cast your ballots? Please cast your ballots. Mr. Rayon?
Nay.
Mr. Catnaugh?
Aye.
We have a vote of 6 yeas and 1 nay. Motion carried. Next item on our agenda is consider the adoption and actions of the Standing Committee of the Common Council. First one being Finance and Property, held June 2nd. Mr. Cole?
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I proceed, on this report. The requests from number 5 and 6 have both been withdrawn. Do you want me to read over those anyways, or can we skip over those in the report since they're withdrawn? All right, no problem. The Property and Finance Committee meeting, our Property and Finance Committee met June 2nd at 4:45 p.m. Scott Kellogg sat in for me, and Alderperson Zerflu sat in. List of others that attended is on file with the clerk's office. First business item was consider a request to increase the construction service contract with MSA for the East Riverbank Phase 2 project by $12,500. It was moved by Kellogg, seconded by Kubishak, to amend the MSA contract for the East Riverbank project Phase 2 from $151,365 to $159,562, which reflects an increase of $8,157.25 increase. Motion carried. Item number 3 was a request from Alderperson Kellogg to have a standing report to the committee regarding business that has received grant money from the city's COVID-19 Business Response Grant Program. After discussion, this item was held over until the June 2nd, 2020 Finance and Property Committee meeting. Community Development Director Kearns gave the committee an update on the COVID-19 Business Grant Program. No action was taken. Item number 4 was consider a request from Johnny's LLC, Josh Patron agent doing business as Johnny's, located at 2610 8th Street South, to temporarily extend his alcohol premise to include an outdoor area as shown on the attached map, and for a noise variance to have a band on Saturday, July 4th, 2020 from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. It was moved by Kubishak, seconded by Kellogg, to approve an extension of the premises as requested with a noise variance granted for the band until midnight. Motion carried. Item number 5 was consider a request from CNC Steckbauer LLC, Cali Sailor Steckbauer agent doing business as Whiskey Rapids Saloon, located at 150 2nd Street North, regarding renting using a public parking lot to extend her alcohol premise on a frequent basis for outside bar activities, Bagsley. It was moved by Kubishak, seconded by Kellogg, to compel the city attorney to pursue a rental agreement with CC Steckbauer. Motion carried. Item number 6, consider a special event application including street closure, noise variance, vending, and alcohol license premise extension onto public street right-of-way, Johnson Street between 3rd Avenue South and 2nd Avenue South, from Amy Friday doing business as Square Bar, located at 210 Johnson Street, for a customer appreciation celebration event held Saturday, August 29th, 2020 from 12 p.m. noon till 12 a.m. midnight. It was moved by Kubishak, seconded by Zerflu, to approve the special event application from Amy Friday doing business as Square Bar. Motion failed with Kubishak and Kellogg voting in the negative and Zerflu voting in the affirmative. Item number 7 was initial discussion regarding ideas for alternative locations for next year's farmer market. An alternative location for next year's farmer market was discussed with Alderperson Kubishak, suggested Robinson Park, and Alderperson Zerflu suggested that the Wood County Health Department bring forth a recommendation. No action was taken. Item number 8 was consider a request to waive interest on special assessment payments because of the pandemic. After a discussion and explanation of the assessment installment process, the item was tabled and no action was taken. Item number 9 was consider a taxi cab license renewal application from Alley Cab LLC, doing business as Alley Cab, Allison Renzi, owner. It was moved by Kubishak, seconded by Zerflu, to approve the taxi cab license renewal to the corrected applicant name of Alley Cab, Ali Renzi, owner, motion carried. Item number 10 was consider for approval retail alcohol license renewals and direct the city clerk to notify the applicants of the city's intent not to renew if necessary. It was moved by Kubishak, seconded by Kellogg, to approve the retail alcohol license renewals contingent upon all fees and delinquent taxes being paid in full by June 30th, 2020. Motion carried. Item number 11 was beverage operator licenses. It was moved by Kubishak, seconded by Kellogg, to approve the beverage operator licenses. List of names mentioned above. Motion carried. Item number 12 was audit of the bills. It was moved by Kubishak, seconded by Zerflu, to approve checks number 3747 to 4101. Motion carried. Item number 13 was to set the next meeting date. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance and Property Committee will be held July 7th, 2020 at 4:45 p.m. Item number 14 was adjournment. It was moved and seconded to adjourn. The meeting adjourned at 6:30 p.m. With that, I would like to hold out items number 4, and then I'll pause if anyone else wants anything held out.
Item 2, please.
Hearing nothing else to be held out, I will move for adoption of the report.
Mayor, I just want to clarify which items you're holding out.
Yep, so we were just going to do the same thing. So the first item held out is item number 2.
2, okay.
And then the next item being held out is number 4.
Yep.
And then 5 and 6.
We can hold 5 and 6 out then too, since.
And then also item 5 and item 6.
So holding out items number 2, 4, 5, and 6, I'll move for adoption of the report.
We have a motion by Mr. Koth. Second by Mr. Kellogg to approve the balance of the report, holding out items 2, 4, 5, and 6. Any discussion on the balance of the report? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Aye for Mr. Rayom. Mr. Katna?
Aye.
And aye for Mr. Katna. Motion carried, 7 ayes and 0 nays.
We can take these in order. I'm willing to let Alderperson Kubishak go with item number 2 since it's first.
Sounds good. Item number 2, Mr. Kubishak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and be quicker with this, although ironically, this is something that I think that we went through too quick in committee and or on the council floor in the past. And for reference, it'll be page 48 on your PDF packet. But a quick brief explanation. This is a request from an engineering firm for the riverfront projects, whether it's 1 or 2, or it looks like everything's kind of combined. And there was a original expense request for $12,500, and staff review took that down to $8,197.25. And staff, that was their recommendation. And with me going through this is not a condemnation of any particular staff member or even the previous mayor, but there are specific emails through correspondence that were cited or weren't cited for requests in terms of projects or the scope of the project being done. If we're looking at item number 1, the recommendation is no change on there, so then we would go to recommendation, or item number 2, restoration of phase 1 improvements integrated into phase 2 project, including construction, inspection, administration. Engineering firm is asking for $46,0750. Recommendation by staff was to pay 50% of that. And what this was through emails was actual engineering work, inspection work done because of the flooding. And with the emails going back and forth, Mr. Dan Borkart from MSA, and there's lengthy, like I said, I'm not going to read verbatim, but basically there was 4 different events where the river flooded. And because of that, a lot of topsoil, a lot of seeds and everything went down the river with it. unfortunately, because of the contract that we had with the contractor, they warranty for up to a year of their deal. So ultimately, the first time the contractor asked for a change order for materials and labor for $16,314, the engineering firm got that down to zero because the warranty, they did it again when the river flooded, $16,314. Then it flooded again. We didn't, actually, we negotiated through it, I don't know, the mayor's office negotiated through and even suggesting that the city would be responsible for partial costs with that. The contractor redid the topsoil, and then there was 1/4 time that this happened in September 13th through the 16th. So if the engineering firm didn't spend the time, the $2,600 or whatever they're asking that we're cutting their project, we could have been on the hook for $16,000 times 4. So they were looking out for the best interest, so I would assume that their time is worth something with that. So with this, I would suggest that the recommendation or the recommendation is wrong. We should be paying them $4,607.50. Review item number 3: review of additional ramp on the backside of the balcony. Correspondence drafting time. A review of options on the back of the balcony. $527 was the request from the engineering firm. Recommendation by staff was to pay them $0. I've got email correspondence from Mr. Joe Eichstead that says, I met with the mayor outside yesterday afternoon to discuss the trail continuity through or adjacent to the park, the sidewalk, decorative concrete, and other street lighting because there's a primary electrical conflict, the curb behind the trail into the park, and the narrow of 11-foot trail down to an 8-foot trail. Attached is an exhibit showing these changes. Please let me know ASAP if you see any issues with the park work, i.e. grading. Also, we were discussing the balcony and the trail coming in from the northeast, and we were somewhat concerned with the width of the sidewalk will be too inviting for bikes since we don't have a through route for wheelchairs or bikes, wondering if it would make sense to narrow the sidewalk a bit. The other question would be is that if the bench E isn't being installed, would it make sense to provide a narrow 4-foot ramp around the southeast corner of the balcony? We really don't want to add more sidewalk and whatever, but there's 3 questions here, 3 engineering questions here, and it says ASAP. I mean, to suggest that we wouldn't give them a single dollar, and in fact, they came back, and the argument was is that they didn't bring forth an RFP request for proposal for this, but I mean, this email itself, I think if I was handed this, that would be the authorization. So with that, I would suggest that they get what they asked for, $527. Item number 4, plan preparation for adding trees to the parks after the storm damaged vegetation in the park, $692. The city requested MSA develop a recommendation for tree planting after July 20th storm event. MSA said it would be $300. Recommendation paid $300. Interestingly enough, an email chain that says, from, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I've got copies of this. This is stuff that I can distribute, and it should have been in our packet. I don't know why it wasn't in our packet. But originally, it was the proposal from Dan Schmidt from MSA, a proposal to provide services to locate 4 trees. It says verbatim, 4 trees in the Veterans Memorial Park, 1 in the Meadview Rapids Park, which would equal 5 for $300. And chain of email going back and forth. Then Mayor Bruink came in and he said, good morning, Dan. There's a variety of hackberry that doesn't produce fruit, ? I would be concerned with staining cleanup on walks and concrete seating. Additionally, I marked a few other areas that should be considered for the tree or shade or aesthetic reasons. There are trees shown on the plan that no longer exist in a number of cases, so the additional areas would be beneficial to these spaces. Take a look and send over your rides for your convenience. And what the mayor had sent was not a page with just 4 trees in the one park and 1 tree in the other park. There was up to 14 trees. So now this scope has added, and there was 14 trees plus 1 tree actually put in the park. So to suggest that they would still be on the hook for the original 3 trees, if there isn't any more higher level than the autonomy of the mayor of the city of Wisconsin Rapids to ask the engineering firm to do that. I don't know what else would be required for that. Item number 5, I don't have good enough information on this, so I can't argue this one. So this one, I would go with the recommendation of staff, and then the 6th one, there's no change with that. So ultimately, as far as with the information that I've got here, I would feel very concerned about not doing good business with a contractor, or actually with the engineering firm in this specific case. So with that being said, I would make a motion with the $1,080 less from the original total, which would be to pay the engineering firm $11,420.
Sorry about that. We have a motion by Mr. Kobushak. Just want to see if there's a second on that motion. We have a second by Mr. Veneman. Mr. Bemke.
Could we recognize Mr. Terry, please?
Yes, Mr. Terry.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Items number 2 and 3 were included in the scope of the original contract. The restoration of phase 1 improvements, essentially we asked our professional consultant to let the contractor know that the contract requires that the sods establish on the shoreline, period. That was it. You know, the fact that it was already in the contract for them to perform those duties, and that they didn't simply say, hey, it's in the contract. So unless there's sod established, you're not getting paid. We were repetitive about that, and MSA went ahead and wrote a bunch of letters and decided to charge the city for that. It wasn't extra work. That was in the original contract. They made extra work of it and never notified the city of their intent to charge for extra work. So because the original contract has those types of communications in it, in the scope, and with a price, as staff, we just didn't feel it's appropriate. You know, we try to maybe meet in the middle, but it's not appropriate. And we had this same problem in phase 1 of the project early on, where there were services that were provided, the scope was set, the contract reflects those services, and all of a sudden there's asked for more money. And in the contract, again, it says for a certain dollar amount and the level of services provided. So it's, staff felt it's disingenuous of any service provider to, after the fact, come up and ask for additional compensation. Item number 3 was the same, basically the same situation. They're the ones that designed the project. And for them to try to attempt to charge for some drawings that we didn't ask for, the railing has to somehow connect to the bridge. It has to. It wasn't identified in their drawings, and then they wanted additional compensation to design what they were supposed to design in the first place to react to it. And again, that was part of the contract. So, you know, that $527, that's why staff doesn't recommend any additional, because it was a design omission, and they're responsible for that. The 4th item as well for the trees, some of those trees, if you look at the plans, there were some questions that were asked, but when the discussion took place with MSA, they said any additional, you know, $300 was going to be more than that. Again, there should have been some notification that, well, hey, if you want us to look at 17 trees, our $300 proposal is out the door. We need to negotiate this and talk about this, and that didn't happen. And again, we're trying to look out for the best interest of the taxpayer here. We've had 2 long conversations with MSA's executives, so that there's an understanding. We've done over $2 million worth of work with this firm in the last several years with some of the major projects that we've had. And we've had a good relationship with the firm and some great results on projects. We need to make sure that there's clear expectations that the city's going to pay for work. If it's in the contract and the scope is defined, if you're going to ask for extra pay, the city has a right to know about it before you ask for it. Otherwise, if the scope is in the contract, unless we hear differently, we have to presume that work falls within the scope. And so that's the reason for our recommendation. And like I said, we did have a follow-up conversation with MSA's top officials, and I think we're on the same page here. Thank you.
Seeing nothing further, is this Mr. Kubitschek?
Yeah, real quick, I want to make a distinction that this is not a contract that's like a construction contract. A public works contract is unit quantity based. It's a case where that the contractor cannot exceed, and that's why we didn't pay for those $16,000 change orders that they requested in terms of the redoing of the riverbank after the flooding occurred. But with the contract that engineering firms have is similar to the language that legal firms have. Sorry about that. That there is no not to exceed. I don't see a not to exceed in the contract itself. I do see an estimated hours, but if it's a case where there's extenuating circumstances, I mean, if I was this firm and I don't get paid for the work that I legitimately did, now it'd be a different story. Again, if it was contracted in terms of a public works contract, I can see that because the contractor assumes liability. They also have insurance with that. But if you're a professional firm, I know that I probably would not do business with an organization that does not pay me my legitimate, and especially save money. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. So the motion is to approve the item.
Mayor, if I could just ask Joe Terry a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Rio.
Still around, Joe.
Yep.
So the 815725, is that what we agreed to a few months ago?
Yes, that's correct.
So that number, so to agree with that is to agree with what we did, approximately 2/3 of the request.
Right, but that is not the motion currently on the table.
2/3, I think, without it all in front of me right now. But yeah, so. And I thought that was the same numbers, and that I can go along with it because we did that 2 months ago. So support that. That it stays there. I would just want to make sure that it stays at that number.
So the motion is something
Not
different.
handing out. What's the motion?
Yeah, the motion, the clerk will read it back to you. It is something different.
The motion is to approve the request to increase the construction service contract with MSA for the East Riverbank Phase 2 project by $11,420.
Oh, to go up to that. It'd be to go up to 11, so instead of the 8157 approved, so it'd be different. Okay.
So
Just
it's
wanna
being,
make sure.
no, it's being changed to 11,400.
And
That's the amount.
just so you all know, that's why I'll vote against it, because I'll stick at the 8157.
Okay, sounds good, Mr. Aom. Mr. Bemke?
So this is probably a question for Mr. Terry again. You said you've spoken to MSA. Did they agree to this price that we've, or if they haven't agreed to it, what's our recourse?
Right now, we haven't paid them any extra because there hasn't been action taken yet. I mean, their recourse is legal recourse if they feel that that's appropriate. I don't anticipate that that'll happen. I mean, after we've had discussions with them, I think they understand that they do have a responsibility. You know, if I say that it's going to take 5 hours to do a project, and I give you a price for 5 hours, and I come back and charge you for 10, and I didn't tell you it was going to take more than 5, you'd be upset. So they understood the staff's position, and staff understands that there were some extenuating circumstances. There were some requests, legitimate requests, that were outside the scope, change orders, for example, and that's why staff recommended an amount, but not the full amount.
Mr. Kubiszek.
In a situation, if you tell someone that it's going to take 5 hours to replace 3 windows, and then they come back and say you got to replace 7 more and hold them accountable to that, I don't see the logic.
So is everyone clear on the motion? Seeing no other discussion, Mr. Aom, Mr. Katna?
As long as I agree with the 8157. I don't agree with the 11,000, whatever. However my vote has to go, it'll be.
And my vote is no for the same reason.
Okay, so let's please cast your ballot.
No.
Mr. Aom's
No.
no. Mr. Katna's no.
No.
Motion failed. 5 noes and 1 yes, or 1 A and 6 noes. So yeah, 6 no, 1 yes. Seeing that motion failed. Entertain another motion? Or?
Hoping right way on that, that's for sure.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I think I did. Just to make sure.
So yeah, let the clerk's computer catch up with the clerk. He moves too fast.
I'll make a motion to accept the payment the MSA has presented from $151,365 to $159,562, which reflects the increase of $81,5725.
Okay.
Yep.
We have a motion to approve the report as presented. And a second by Mr. Kellogg. Any further discussion on this motion?
Oh, you just talked, the report, you just talking about item 2?
Yes, so there's a new motion to approve the report as presented
Okay, yep.
for the $8,157.25.
Yep. I vote yes.
Have no further discussion. Please cast your ballots. Mr. Rayom is voting yes or aye. Mr. Katna?
Aye.
Mr. Katna is an aye also. Motion carried, 6 ayes and 1 nay. Item number 4, Mr. Cope.
Thank you, Your Honor. Originally, we had 3 premise extension requests, and now we're down to 1. And we just, about 45 minutes or so ago, spent time talking about COVID-19 impacts in the city and other things of that nature. We, as a city, have already moved our 4th of July fireworks celebration because of the event that's going on. With the Supreme Court ruling that happened in May, the Supreme Court ruling was purely that the governor's order was unconstitutional for stay at home. It did not end the pandemic as it's been declared. And we are still in the pandemic stage, and we are still being asked to exercise reasonable precautions and reasonable measures. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy, very happy, that businesses have had the opportunity to reopen and people have had the opportunity to go back to work. But I believe having an event that is designed to draw in large number of people at this point in time is a reckless decision and an endangerment of public safety. According to Channel 7 WSAW on June 5th, 2020, in their press release, there was a COVID-19 outbreak 20 miles down the road in Stevens Point with 15 to 20 confirmed cases, which has resulted in closures of bars in that city. I tried to figure out if those were ordered by the Portage County Health Department or if those were voluntarily come about, but I have not figured it out or heard back. Point is 20 minutes down the road from us. If we have any festivities in this town that are designed to draw a large number of people, we are inviting good Lord only knows who to come over to this city for an event, and anyone that could have COVID-19 does not necessarily show symptoms being asymptomatic. I do not feel comfortable giving the green light to have any type of event where we're going to put people in a confined area. I just do not want that responsibility coming back on us. We can tell people to socially distance, wear masks, use hand sanitizers all day long as the commercials run on TV, but when it comes down to the facts of the matter, people can't even follow the 6-foot cones or stickers on the floor in the supermarket or around the ice cream shop. So to expect people to exercise any sort of precaution in a celebratory event isn't going to happen. I will make a motion to approve item number 4, because all motions have to be made in the affirmative, but I will vote against it.
So a motion by Mr. Cole, seconded by Mr. Kubishak. Anybody have anything further to add? I know the requester is in the audience. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Patron? It's up to, does somebody recognize him?
I'll recognize him.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Patron, do you have anything? Yep, come on up to the microphone and push the push button and the green light should pop on.
Thank you. Sorry for my Sunday best, but I just came from work. So, quickly, I'm not an expert in COVID. I'm not an expert in anything really. Just trying to give people an opportunity to make their own decisions and have a good time. Try to get something out of this summer because everything is getting canceled. It's not necessarily going to help me a whole lot because the cost of the event is going to be pretty astronomical, but I just want people to have an opportunity to go out and have a little bit of fun at their discretion. If they want to stay home, they're scared of this, then please do. Stay home. It's no different than the pool or anything else. It's going to be opening potentially or not opening, so, I sent letters out to all the neighbors. There's no issue there. It's just really up to you guys how you feel about the COVID, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any further discussion? Mr. Kubishak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quick, it's sometimes we got to make decisions. Sometimes we got to make decisions for other people. And as being someone who, and with many different decisions. I consider myself a libertarian through and through, and in fact, actually, I voted for Gary Johnson in the last presidential election, which turned out to be a mistake on my part. But as far as being a true libertarian, I don't think that government should be involved with making prohibitive decisions. So I think Mr. Patron went through the proper channels, went through the proper committee, was very polite in terms of how he was asking. He made the recommended recommendations for what we had suggested at 12 o'clock, turning the band trailer one way. And I don't see anything that would be illegal or in his application to be wrong. So I don't have anything that can prohibit from him on the council floor. So I'm voting yes.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Katna, Mr. Rayon?
No, none for me.
Thank you.
I would second most of what Mr. Kubitschek said. People are out, they're having a good time regardless. I think this is actually a better opportunity for them to do it because they're going to be outside. They're going to have more space to social distance. So I still am in favor of personal choice in this situation, so I will also be voting in favor.
Just confirming, this is, the motion is to approve it. Yeah, okay.
Correct. Seeing no other discussion or requests, please cast your ballots. Mr. Rayon?
It's no.
And Mr. Katna?
Aye.
I'm in no.
Okay.
Aye.
So we have 5 ayes and 2 nays. Motion carries. Next item is item 5.
Well, since item 5 and 6 have both withdrawn, my remarks from item 4 haven't changed, but I will make since, again, all motions have to be in the affirmative, I will make a motion to approve item 5 and 6.
Well, 5 really wasn't any action other than to work out something with them. So it's my understanding that they contacted, I guess I'm not sure what happened with that item.
So item 5, they felt that, I talked to Chris Stackbauer today, and he said that by the time we got a lease agreement put together and approved at Finance and Property and then approved at Common Council, it would be too late to do the Bags League anyway, so they were withdrawing.
Okay, so I guess we...
And number 6, are we taking it up at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. And number 6, in light of the mill closing, they felt it was better to cancel that event as well at Square Bar. So that has been withdrawn.
Okay. That one we could consider, that was actually basically a denial at finance, and so they would have had appellate rights to the council, so I guess they're not appealing, or, right, okay.
Alderperson Koth made a motion to approve 5 and 6. Would you like to withdraw that?
I can if it'd be simpler.
That's true. Nobody seconded it.
Does anybody care to second the motion? Number 1. Anybody? Number 2? And do we call for a second on the third time? Motion fails. All right, so no action needed on those items. And
I'm here, Shane.
yep, Bob, we're just letting the clerk's computer to catch up. Okay, Mr. Rayon, go ahead and Public Works held June 11th. Go ahead,
You
sir.
ready for that? I'll read.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Public Works Committee met at 5:30, Thursday, June 11th, 2020, in Council Chambers at City Hall. and via remote video conferencing. Public was able to listen to the meeting by calling 1-312-626-6799, access code 872-7685-3819. The meeting was presented live on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, Spectrum Channel 985 and Solaris Channel 3. Online, it keeps going on with that. So, the meetings will also be available on demand, and so I'm just trying to paraphrase and skip a whole lot of this. Get down to Tom Rayom, Jay Catnaw, and Dean Venema were present. Others attending are on file in the clerk's office. Item 1 was the meeting was called to order. The meeting was called to order at 5:30 p.m. Item 2, review the DPW report. The report is available online on Public Works homepage of the city's website. Item 3, review the crushing contract proposals. Motion by Rayom, seconded by Veneman, to accept the proposal from PGA for $149,000. That motion carried 3-0. Item 4, review degradation ordinance. Recommendations for changes to Chapter 6.24, degradation costs were presented. Committee requested staff to develop an ordinance language based on the information presented and present that language at the July Public Works Committee meeting. Item 5 was to review the referral list. The referral list was reviewed. Item 6, review West Jackson Street design for traffic control options at 6th Street. The motion and a second to approve the alternative number 3. That was to be an all-way stop to control traffic at the West Jackson Street and 6th Street intersection, as recommended by the city's consulting engineer and staff. Item 7 was review West Jackson Street typical of cross-section options. There was a motion and a second to approve the typical cross-section as presented for the West Jackson Street. And that motion carried 3-0. Item 8 was to adjourn. There was a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting, and that was done and carried. And with that, I move for adoption of the committee report.
We have a motion by Mr. Rayom, seconded by Mr. Koth. Any further discussion?
All I'll say, I'm just going to add something, Shane,
Yep.
real quick.
Yes, sir.
And it's on the West Jackson Street, because the most favorable option was for a roundabout. But with the railroad tracks and whatnot, so this was, at this point in time, the best way to go. At some point in time, the railroad tracks, we have to address I think we really have to address the situation. And so I'm just, this is the way to go for right now. But a roundabout probably would work better, but with the railroad, when the train shuts it down, it causes problems. So I just want to put that in there, and so this is probably the best route to go right now. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Rayom. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Aye.
We have aye from Mr. Rayom and Mr. Koth. Mr. Catnaw. So we have a motion carried 6 ayes and 1 nay.
Yep.
Thank you. The next item is Human Resource Committee held on June 4th, and we also have a second report on June 11th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Human Resources Committee meeting scheduled for June 4, 2020. Alderpersons Kubitschek and Bemke were present in the council chambers, and Alderperson Zerflu appeared via video conferencing. Also present were Deb Hoggle, Mayor Shane Blazer, Tyler Mickelson, and Sue Schill, Attorney Sue Schill. Item number 1, meeting was called to order at 5:06 p.m. Item number 2, discuss and consider approval of health insurance renewal with Aspire Rise for July 1st, 2020. Bemke abstained from the discussion and vote. Motion by Kubitschek, second by Zerflu to renew employee health insurance coverage with Aspire Rise for 1 year commencing July 1st, 2020 with no increase and to maintain the present employee premium rates. Those rates are as follows. Item A, city employee rates $741.74 for a single, $1,496.74 for a limited family, and $2,142.57 for a family. Item B, city retiree non-Medicare rates, $756.57 for a single, $1,526.67 for a limited family, and $2,185.42 for a family rate. And in parentheses, these rates include a 2% administrative fee. Item number C, city retiree Medicare rates, $567.44 for a single, $1,134.87 for a single plus spouse, both Medicare eligible, and $1,324.01 single plus spouse, only one Medicare eligible. These rates include a 2% administrative fee. And D, water and light employee and retiree rates, $756.57 for a single, $1,526.67 for a limited family, and $2,185.42 for a family. These rates also include a 2% administrative fee. Motion carried 2-0 with Alderperson Bemke abstaining. Item number 3, discuss and consider approval of dental insurance renewal with Delta Dental for July 1st. Motion by Zerflu, second by Bemke to approve a renewal with Delta Dental for employee dental rates. Motion carried 3-0. And I don't know why this. Next page. Item number 4, discuss and consider approval of updated language to the HR Director job description. Motion by Kubitschek, second by Bemke to revise the Human Resources Director job description as presented. Motion carried 3-0. Item number 5, update on the hiring status of the vacant Human Resources Director position. Deb Hoggle gave an update. Item number 6, update on employee recruitment. Deb Hoggle gave an update. Item number 7, motion by Bemke, second by Zerflu to adjourn. Motion carried 3-0 to adjourn the meeting at 5:19 p.m. And I will also report on the Human Resources Committee meeting held June 11th. Is that right? Do I got the right one here?
Yes.
Is this the agenda? I think I'm looking. What page is the minutes?
118.
118.
Here we go. Human Resources Committee meeting minutes, June 11, 2020. Meeting was called to order by Chairperson Kubitschek, 4:34 p.m. Item number 2, discuss and consider approval of proposed changes to the following job descriptions. A, Computer Network Support Technician. B, GIS Coordinator. C, Multimedia Coordinator. Motion was made by Bemke, second by Zerflu to approve all 3 revised job descriptions as presented. Motion carried 3-0. Item number 3, motion by Bemke, second by Zerflu to adjourn. Motion carried 3-0. The meeting adjourned at 4:42 p.m. And with that, I will ask for any holdouts, and if not, then I make a motion for approval on both these reports.
I'd like to have a holdout number 4 from June 4th. Description of HR Director.
Mr. Bemke, do you want to abstain? From the, we should probably hold that one out also. First report, item 2. Oh. So we have a motion by Mr. Kubaschak. Is there a second? Correct. Yeah, because it's held out. Item 2 is held out. Is there any further discussion on the balance of the report? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Mr. Katnoff?
Aye.
Both are ayes. Motion carried, 7 ayes to 0 nays. Well, Mr. Bemke, if you care to excuse yourself, then we will take up item number 2. He's out of here. Entertain a motion for item number 2.
I'll make a motion to accept item number 2 of the first Human Resources Committee report as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Koth, and we have a second from Mr. Kellogg. Mr. Bemke needs to abstain. Seeing no further requests to speak, clerk's ready. Please cast your ballots. Mr. Katnaugh and Mr. Rayon?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have both of them voting in the aye. Bemke? Right, that motion carried 6 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. And if Mr. Bemke hasn't left the house, he can join us again. So we have item number 4, Mr. Kellogg.
Yeah, I really think the description's pretty good, but on page 1 of 4, third, I guess it would be a paragraph from the bottom that says, serves as spokesperson in labor contract negotiations, and it's crossed out. In my past experience, I think that's good. But what does the committee have in mind? What's their vision of how negotiations will take place in the future and the impact on the budget and things like that? I was just curious.
I can speak to the cross out. Typically, speaking with our interim director, that's not usually a typical role for an HR director, being that it could potentially set up an adversarial relationship. But as for the negotiation plans in the future, I don't know if that's been discussed by the committee yet. Mr. Kubaschak?
Thank you. What we want to do is kind of get back to what we were before, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, when the committee themselves got involved with the negotiations. And that's, now, that may change because in a year from now, who knows what the committee appointments are going to be. But that was, and maybe Mr. Bemke can also speak to that in terms of the committees, at least, and again, I can't speak for anybody else, in fact, but in my opinion, the committee's desire is to get more involved with the negotiation process. And realistically, we have what? Just two bodies to bargain with anyway, the police and the fire, right? So, yeah, but to get the committee's involvement back into it.
All right, I have some thoughts about that, but I can share that with the H&R committee as they delve as to what they want to do. But I was just curious. Thanks.
Seeing no further discussion, anybody care to make a motion?
Make an item to approve item number 4 on the HR committee report as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Koth. And we have a second by Mr. Kellogg. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your ballots. Mr. Rayon, Mr. Katnaugh?
Aye.
Aye.
We have an aye from both of them. Motion carried, 7 ayes, 0 nays. Yes. Was it? Yeah. We are on to reports of other committees, commission, and boards, and departmental reports. What are your wishes?
Make a motion to place the balance of the reports on file.
We have a motion by Mr. Coth to place the balance of the reports on file. And we have a
Second.
second by Mr. Kubishak. Beat you by just a little bit, Mr. Rayom. You weren't fast enough on the button. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's please cast your ballots. Mr. Rayom is an aye. Mr. Katnaugh?
Aye.
And Mr. Katnaugh is an aye. Motion carries 7 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you, community media, Mr. Mickelson, for providing IT. Nothing further. Item 10 is adjournment. We have a motion by Mr. Kubishak.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Koth to adjourn at 8:30 p.m. All in favor, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
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 Thank you all.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Mr. Veneman, you want to vote?
Take care and stay safe.
Thank you, Mr. Rayom. Everybody have a good night. Motion carried, 7 ayes, 0 nays.